What's up, Grandmaster Igor Smirnov is here, and today I'd like to share with you the line that you can use against black responding with pawn to e5 against you, which is the most traditional chess opening. And now when you go after knight f3, knight c6 and bishop b5, which looks like just a standard Ruy Lopez, there is a line which most players are unfamiliar with, and I use it myself even in long-time control over the board games, including Masters and Grandmasters. And it worked really well. I would say it didn't work much against Grandmasters, but even against Masters it worked pretty well. So let's find out. After a6, bishop a4, knight f6, that's still the main line of the Ruy Lopez. Most of your opponents will go for this. Instead of castling, which is the traditional way, you play queen e2. And what I like about this move is that it's a perfectly sound move. It protects this pawn on e4 so that you don't have to worry about black taking this pawn anytime in the future. And it's, again, completely sound move, but it also contains a lot of interesting tricks along the way, and it gets black out of their opening preparation because probably they are unfamiliar with it, or at least they know very little about it. Now, after you played queen to e2, black usually responds with pawn b5. Because here, after you played queen e2 and protected your own central pawn, black may start getting worried about you eliminating this knight from c6 and then winning this pawn on e5. And even though maybe right now it's not such a big threat, but anyway, in most games black go b5, bishop b3, and after that bishop e7, thinking that it's kind of the same thing as the main line of the Ruy Lopez. But now you play pawn a4, and all of a sudden it turns out that queen from e2 also has another direction here to look to. It's this b5 pawn, which is now also attacked by your pawn from a4. And it already creates some problems for black as to what to do with this pawn on b5. Taking on a4 is never really an option. That would destroy the black's pawn structure on the queen side. All these pawns are weak. You're going to take the pawn a4 right now, and after that, those other pawns are weak as well. Therefore, black does not want to do that. If not pawn takes a4, then they have two options, either pushing their pawn forward or protecting this pawn by going rook to b8. Both moves are played by many players, so we're going to analyze them both. The most played move is pawn b4, because that looks like the simplest idea for black to shut down this a-file so that you can never get your rook involved after an exchange of pawns here, and so b4 looks like a good move. Now you surprise your opponent with the move pawn d4. Now you strike in the center, attacking this pawn on e5, which creates another challenge for black. What should they play now? If they decide to accept the pawn sacrifice here, then it's really a bad option for black, because now you have a chance to play pawn e5, taking this knight from f6, and what can black do now? Well, moving it backward to its original square is very passive, and black can't castle anymore. That's completely bad. If they try out the move knight g4, then this knight is still misplaced, and you can attack it either by playing h3 or, which is even stronger, queen e4, because now you also activate your queen and hit the knight. The knight would have to retreat there. Now you can trade it there and disrupt the black's pawn structure, and if you just look at this position overall, you can see that it is a mess for black. All of their pawns are weak, your bishop is very active here, their king does not really want to castle because the position on the king side is opened up. You can take this pawn, you can go bishop d5, I mean you have just so much here that it's pretty obvious that it's completely bad for black. Okay, let's go back a few moves. So once again, you strike in the center with pawn d4. We know that taking it enables you to push forward with pawn e5, and therefore it's bad for black, and most players will react, which looks like a correct way, pawn d6. And in 99.9% of games where black plays Ruy Lopez, playing d6 is a very good option for black. Therefore, black never expects this move to be a mistake, and yet this particular position is an exception. D6 is a losing mistake because you've got the move queen c4, and because the d6 move again is so standard, nobody thinks that it could be a mistake. Even masters and really strong players fall for this trap. Now with the queen c4, you double attack the f7 pawn as well as the knight on c6, and basically black can already resign. It's only 9 moves well played here, and time for black to resign. A lot of your opponents will simply castle, leaving this knight undefended, and you would go ahead and take it. In this game we're analyzing, they decided to try taking here on d4, but that didn't help. Queen takes f7 now. Notice that the queen is supported by the bishop, therefore it cannot be taken, the king has to go. Now white took here on d4, and after this, bishop e6, check to the king. The only way to go is king c6, and white simply played bishop d5, because now it's the X-ray attack to the rook on a8, and therefore, in addition to attacking black's king, you're also winning the rook. Again, very cool line, which I love a lot, because you play really nice positional moves, but along the way you set this nice tactical trap. Let's now go to the database of games, and I'll show you something truly interesting. So you go pawn e4, most of your opponents respond with pawn e5. You play knight f3, most of your opponents the top line knight c6. You go bishop b5, a6 is by far the most popular move, bishop a4, knight f6, again overwhelming majority of people played, and here instead of these standard moves you play queen e2. Your opponents play bishop b5, attacking the bishop, bishop goes back, now they go bishop e7, you play another move which surprises them, pawn a4, and now you can see the two most played moves are b4 and rook b8, and we're going to analyze both of them. b4 here, you go pawn d4, and if you look at this, majority of players either took here on d4 with either a pawn or a knight, which we already discussed, it's bad for black, or they play d6, falling right into your trap, queen c4, winning the game, and you see majority of players simply castled, leaving white this start on c6. So what's crazy about this line is that it works against the most played moves by black of all. That is crazy, you probably would never saw a trap like that. The second move we gotta cover here is rook going here to b8, protecting the pawn that way. In this case, you can trade on b5, and that's already an accomplishment for you, because now you've got this open file for your rook. Really cool. And now what I suggest you to do is playing knight to c3. Once again, slightly unusual for the traditional lines of Ruy Lopez, but in this case, you are again putting some pressure against this pawn on b5. And your opponents will usually be worried about this and will push this pawn forward, playing pawn b4, but now your knight can land on this great outpost square on d5, where it attacks a lot of squares in the black's position. If black ever decides to take it, you can recapture either with the bishop or pawn, both ways are really strong. Still, you have this open file for the rook, so again, you're not winning like right now, it's not a trap, but you have a really cool game out of the opening, and you have great chances to win this game later. And now, in this final line, you are going to find the best move for white yourself. The main move here is bishop e7, which we just analyzed. What if they go pawn d6? Another move which some of your opponents may decide to play, also looks pretty good for black, pretty normal. You're still playing pawn a4 with all the same purpose, taken here on b5, and by the way, if black ever misses the threat, if they play something like this, bishop e7, then they're just missing your main threat, that after a take they cannot recapture, that loses the rook on a8. It's just worth mentioning, because I forgot to mention this previously, but that's one of your main threats here actually in this position. Anyway, let's go back one move here. Most probably your opponent will notice this, and so after you push your pawn forward to a4, they're gonna play pawn b4. And now I'd like to ask you to think about this position and write it down in the comments below. How would you play here as white? Let's brush up your tactical vision, and let's see if you can find it out. Let me also mention that if you want to go beyond just opening traps but truly elevate your chess to the next level, then you can still enroll into our flagship course, the Grandmaster's Positional Understanding. It's the course that I'm most proud of. It created more strong players than I know about any other chess tutorial out there. And right now you have a few final days to enroll into the course and to get 50% discount, as well as access to 2 other courses for free with over $200, but you get it for free, as well as you get access to my personal support and the support from other people for our close community of students. All that will be gone within a few days, therefore if you're interested, please click the link on the screen or below the video and to check out the details to see if that's something you would enjoy. I can't wait to serve you there, and either way, wishing you all the best in your chess battles. Take care, talk soon.